You know that moment, right? You're frantically patting your pockets, searching everywhere, absolutely sure you've lost your glasses, and then you realize they're sitting right on top of your head. It's one of those classic, almost funny moments of forgetfulness. But, behind that little brain hiccup, there's a question a lot of us ask ourselves. Is this just normal? Or is it a sign of something more?
Oh, we've all been there. That word that's just on the tip of your tongue, or the mystery of where your keys went this time. It happens to everyone. But the line between a simple, everyday slip-up and something that's a real cause for concern, well, it can feel a little blurry. So today, let's clear up that blur. Let's draw a really clear line. And hey, if you want a little more background on how our amazing brains work, feel free to check out some of our past explainers on the topic.
So, here's the most important thing to get right away. Not all memory loss is the same. I want you to think of it like you're on a road trip. Some memory slips are just a tiny detour. You miss a turn, but you find your way back pretty quick. Others, though, can be a serious roadblock, something that really changes the whole journey. So let's map out these different paths our memory can take.
To get started, it is so important that we get the language right. The word dementia isn't actually a specific disease. It's more of an umbrella term, okay? It describes a whole group of symptoms, things like changes in memory, thinking, and social skills that are bad enough to really interfere with someone's daily life. A super common mistake is to use dementia and Alzheimer's as if they're the same thing, but they're not. Alzheimer's is a disease that causes the symptoms of dementia. It's just one of the most common reasons those symptoms show up.
Okay, this table breaks it all down so well. Let's look at that first row together. For normal, age-related forgetfulness, you might misplace your keys sometimes. We all do it. With something called mild cognitive impairment, or MCI, it happens a lot more often, and it's probably pretty frustrating. But with dementia, the change is on a whole other level. You might actually forget what keys are even for, or you might put them somewhere totally bizarre, like in the fridge. You see the pattern? It's the same for names. Forgetting an acquaintance's name for a second, totally normal. Frequently forgetting names and taking a long time to recall them, that could be MCI. But not even remembering that you know the person at all, that's what we see in the dementia column. That progression, from just an occasional slip to losing the actual meaning of things, that's the real difference.
So let's talk a little more about that middle ground we just saw, mild cognitive impairment, or MCI. You can think of it as a kind of transitional state. Your memory problems are more frequent than what's typical for your age, but, and this is the key part, they don't stop you from doing your day-to-day things. Now, while studies do show that having MCI increases the risk for Alzheimer's, it's so important to know it is not a guarantee. For some people, MCI can stay stable for years or even get better.
And this is a perfect real-world example of what we're talking about. Missing a single monthly payment? Hey, life gets busy. That could happen to absolutely anyone. It's a normal memory blip. But having consistent trouble managing your bills over time, maybe forgetting what they are or how to even pay them, that points to a bigger problem. See, it's not about the single event. It's about the pattern and the impact it has on your ability to live independently.
Okay, so if dementia isn't just one single disease, what's actually going on in the brain to cause it? Well, at its core, dementia is caused by damage to our nerve cells, our neurons, and their connections. When those neurons can't talk to each other properly, it messes with our thinking, our behavior, and our feelings. Let's get a look at the specific things that can create these roadblocks in the brain.
The most well-known cause is Alzheimer's disease. This is where harmful clumps of proteins, called plaques and tangles, build up and are thought to damage and kill off healthy brain cells. Then you have vascular dementia. This comes from damage to the blood vessels that supply the brain, often from strokes that cut off oxygen. Lewy body dementia involves different balloon-like protein clumps that can cause hallucinations and movement issues that look a bit like Parkinson's. There are also less common causes, like Huntington's disease, which is a genetic condition where nerve cells just break down. And there's traumatic brain injury, often from repeated hits to the head. Finally, you have the very rare Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease and the dementia that can develop over time in many people who have Parkinson's disease.
All right, now for a really important and hopeful part of our story. Not all memory loss, even when it seems pretty serious, is caused by one of those progressive diseases. There are actually a ton of conditions that can look like dementia, but they're treatable. And that means the memory loss can often be reversed.
When a doctor starts to investigate memory loss, you can see their checklist is incredibly long. They look at absolutely everything, from the medications you're taking and possible infections to any head trauma and emotional factors like depression. This just goes to show how many different things could be the cause, which is why it's so important not to jump to conclusions. A really thorough checkup is the only way to find the real root of the problem.
Let's break these down, because this is critical info. Certain medications, both prescription and over-the-counter, can cause forgetfulness. Emotional stuff like major stress, anxiety, and especially depression can seriously mess with your ability to concentrate. It could even be something as simple as a vitamin B12 deficiency. That's actually pretty common in older adults because our bodies just don't absorb it as well. An underactive thyroid gland can slow everything down, including your brain. Even a minor head injury or an untreated sleep disorder like sleep apnea can cause huge issues. And of course, things like infections, even a simple UTI, and chronic alcohol misuse can also really impair your mental abilities.
So we've looked at the challenges. Now let's talk about what we can do. How can we be proactive and build up our brain's defenses? Well, the great news is there's a powerful set of strategies out there called non-pharmacological interventions, or NPIs, and they can make a massive difference.
NPIs are pretty much exactly what they sound like. They're strategies that don't involve any medication. And they're getting a ton of attention because, generally speaking, they're safe, they work, and they don't cost a lot. The research really points to three main pillars with the strongest evidence: physical activity, what you eat, and cognitive training. So let's dive into each one.
This quote is just wow. 10 years. That's the potential power we're talking about with exercise. Dr. Budson's recommendation is to get about 30 minutes of aerobic exercise at least 5 days a week. And you know what the best part is? It doesn't matter when you start. Whether you're 29 or 92, it is a great time to start exercising to protect your brain.
So how does exercise actually do its magic? Well, scientists have three main ideas. First, the healthier your heart and lungs are, the healthier your brain is. It's that simple. Second, exercise literally pumps more oxygen and fuel up to the brain, helping it work better. And third, physical activity boosts these amazing compounds like BDNF. You can think of it like fertilizer for your brain cells that helps them grow, connect, and stay healthy.
All right, next up, diet. And here we have two of the heavy hitters for brain health. On the left, you've got the famous Mediterranean diet, which is all about fruits, veggies, whole grains, healthy fats like olive oil, and lean protein like fish. On the right is the DASH diet. That stands for Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension. It also focuses on plant-based foods, but with a special emphasis on low-fat dairy and cutting back on salt to protect your heart.
So what do you get when you combine the best of both of those diets? You get the MIND diet. It stands for Mediterranean-Intervention for Neurodegenerative Delay. It's set up like a balance scale. There are 10 brain-healthy food groups to eat more of and 5 unhealthy groups, things like red meat, butter, and fried foods, to eat less of. What makes the MIND diet really special is its laser focus on green leafy vegetables and berries. Studies suggest these are incredibly powerful for protecting the brain because they're packed with antioxidants that help fight off damage.
So here's how it all comes together, right down at the cellular level. Physical activity, like we saw, boosts those growth factors and gets more blood flowing. A healthy diet can actually help you grow new neurons. It's a process called neurogenesis, and it lowers inflammation. And then, doing targeted cognitive exercises can make the connections between different brain networks stronger and more efficient. It's a real three-pronged attack to support and improve your brain's overall health.
Now, beyond those big lifestyle changes, there are also some really practical techniques, little memory hacks that you can start using right now to give your memory a boost in your everyday life. And these tools are simple, but they are powerful.
A classic technique is using what's called a mnemonic, like an acronym. It's a super simple way to remember a list. So let's say your grocery list is berries, apples, beans, chicken, almonds, and bread. You just take the first letter of each word, B, A, B, C, A, B, and create a word or phrase you can remember. It acts as a simple little cue to help your brain pull up the full list later on.
This quote from UC Davis Health just hits the nail on the head. It gets to the heart of why so many of these memory tricks work. Our brains are not very good at remembering boring lists of facts, but they are amazing at remembering things that are interesting or silly or visually cool. The more you can turn boring information into something that grabs your attention, the better it's going to stick.
And that brings us to one of the most powerful techniques of all, the memory palace. The idea is you mentally place the things you need to remember in specific spots in a familiar place, like your house. But here's the secret. You have to make the images totally absurd. So if your list has horse and couch, don't just picture a horse next to the couch. No way. Picture a giant purple horse wearing a top hat sitting on your couch, juggling chainsaws. Or imagine a tiny blue bird riding your dog like a surfboard. That ridiculous, vivid image is something your brain will latch onto way better than just the plain words.
Finally, after looking at all of these distinctions and strategies, we come back to the most critical question. When is it time to talk to a doctor? This is all about being informed and proactive, not being scared. Knowing what to watch for is actually really empowering.
Okay, the most important takeaway here is this. If memory problems are starting to disrupt your daily life, that's when you see a doctor. This isn't about forgetting a name once in a blue moon. It's about consistent patterns. Are you asking the same questions over and over again? Are you getting lost while driving or walking in a place you know really well? Are you misplacing things in truly weird places, like putting your wallet in the freezer? Or are the people who love you noticing big changes in your mood or behavior? If any of those sound familiar, it's time to make an appointment. Getting it checked out is always the first and most important step to getting answers and finding the right way forward.